This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
We continue the trend of better on paper ideas, as well as just movies not as bad as they're made out to be, but we're just too ambitious or wrong crowds. We got plenty of other movies that are duds, but you have to see them just for the imagination behind it, even though the story and acting, was distracting. It's usual partners in crime, JJ and Tom. And Rose Sully. There's all kinds of stuff here to just kind of just flesh out and remember, hey, if you think today's world's hostile, there was always some kind of just, I hope they fail mentality with some messed up studio systems.
I remember back in the early 80s as a younging, a little boy, taken to the movies all the time by his parents or his neighbors. I was made to sit and watch Xanadu.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Okay.
The one that Gene Kelly was like, I will never work on a movie like that, is like, you break the man and cut away from all the dancing, which is the reason why we're here.
It was like, okay, Olivia Newton-John, she's the hot property at the moment. You've got Michael Beck from the Warriors who said, and I quote, "The Warriors opened a lot of doors for me and Xanadu closed them for me." You've got Gene Kelly making an appearance with his toupee. And I think he plays a character he played in a movie beforehand or something like that. Because there's a part where there was something I read, like his character was supposed to be a character from another movie, or like, where the same thing happened. And you've got a great setup. One of the muses comes to
was
Earth.
Definitely a hit.
Yeah, the ELO was like, I'm sorry, but ELO is one of those bands of the 70s that's going to be like known as like the band that really did bring rock and roll production back into the forefront of album making.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The partnerships, the just looking forward to putting on a show. Yeah.
And it came out, and this is the thing. The soundtrack was great.
Yeah.
The movie? Not that good,
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of look back at it, you got to realize who's in that movie too. It's the Tubes. Remember the Tubes?
Oh yeah,
great band.
Speedway Bill and Vince Welnick from the Grateful Dead, who would play keyboards for the Grateful Dead. They're in that movie, and yes, I'm like, holy shit, the Tubes were pretty good. But it's like that, and then there's another movie that came out from Golden Globus called The Apple.
Yes, I'm so glad you were going to mention that when you announced it, because
that's been the curve. That's been like the and here comes they're going to take Xanadu out. Here comes the Apple out of the bullpen. That movie, I tried watching it, and I mean,
I get it.
It's like an overdose to the senses.
Yes.
And I will say this, Catherine Marie Stewart kind of came out of that unscathed, and you have Josh Ackland in it, who was the voice of General Wormwood in Watership Down. Wow. And there's Miriam Margolyes, who played Professor Sprout in Harry Potter. But damn. I don't remember. I kind of remember the guy who played the bad guy was a Bond bad guy. And the guy who was the lead actor was like, I mean, he was just so vanilla.
Yeah.
And supposedly, I think they gave out cassette tapes that night of the soundtrack, and people were taking them and throwing them at the screen.
That's not good.
You know, I mean, that's how bad it was. I mean, the preview was like, you know, the year is 1994, and you know, and it's supposed to be like these two rosy cheek apple pie innocent kids
And you don't buy the
get
chemistry.
corrupted, and by the music industry. And,
I just meant you don't buy the chemistry either, because it's so forced upon you, because you're just like,
the chemistry's kind of like, you know, and it's like, it's supposed to be like a tale, like she becomes this decadent, you know, sexed up, you know, like rock and roller, and he's this guy who's basically down on his luck, you know, and it's like, you know, it's the music's forced, and there's all these analogies to like God and the devil and all this shit, and I'm like, okay, all right, I'm tapping out here, folks. See you later.
Funny
Bye.
how Globus thought people were going to eat it up, and it's like, not exactly.
You got to realize, I mean, that era was the era of Tommy, you know, Sergeant Pepper, you know,
all of them.
Can't Stop the Music.
Can't Stop the Music. Oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. I just went. I heard the brakes hit in the car crash. Oh, Tom, was that the only movie? Like, was that the movie that they made so much hype for? Like the guy Alan Carr, who was the producer, he made so much hype for it, and it just fell flat on its face.
I want to say yes.
It's definitely in the top 5 Cannon Bombs, because while it has a crowd sense, it was still one of those where just people didn't know how to react to it, and Globus thought it was so just second nature, and is like, not really. I really don't know what we're talking.
Well, who was Nancy Walker directed it?
Yeah.
And it was the Village People, Valerie Perrine, Bruce Caitlyn Jenner. Bruce Jenner was in it.
Sidney LeMay directs.
Yes. No, it's Nancy Walker. Nancy Walker directed.
Okay, then Can't Stop the Music?
Yeah. Yeah, she did Can't Stop the Music.
Okay, what am I thinking? Sidney LeMay musical. I'm probably thinking of The Wiz. That's okay, my bad. Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. The Wiz was good. I liked The Wiz. I think it was cool, you know.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with them, but everyone else seems to just, if they're not, they just seem to just want to act like if it's current, we must defend it. But if it's older, it got what it deserved. I'm like, do you hear yourself right now? Anything deserves a second chance, unless you just absolutely felt like your time was just wasted, you know?
Well, the thing with The Wiz was that they had such a proven cast, you know.
Yeah.
You had Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, you know, you had Lena Horne, you know, you had Richard Pryor as the Wizard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a great thing to watch.
It really is.
You know, and it kind of brought black musicals out from the whole, you know, there hadn't been a black musical in like I don't know how many years.
That's a good point.
You know, this was a musical that had like, you know, come on, ease on down the road, and there was no bad stereotypes.
No,
you know, it wasn't like
no time wasted either. It literally sets it up in like the first grade.
The closest I could think of was Cabin in the Sky. If you remember that one from the 40s.
There's a big one.
This was, you know, and there'd been such a big jump in the 30 years from that, you know, but you got to think too, like you got, what was it? You got the Apple, Xanadu, You Can't Stop the Music, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which I think deserves a show unto itself. Because if you ever read the stories about how Stigwood just friggin' jumped that, like, you know, like stink on shit. And then there's another movie that came out called All This in World War II, which was Beatles songs done by other artists with footage from like World War II and all that shit. And it was like, are you freaking kidding me? You know,
mixing in propaganda with what kinds of
oh, it was just. There's a story about Sergeant Pepper I've always kind of cracked up about, and this is something I read in a book. First off, if you guys ever watch it, you know Billy Preston sings "Get Back," right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to have Paul McCartney show up and sing "Get Back," and he looked at the script and he went, "No, thank you, bye." You know, and then supposedly at the end, Stigwood was going to have them sing the big finale, you know, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and the screen goes black, and you just see a stage set up, and the Beatles come out on stage and play.
Wow.
And I think George and John and Paul were kind of like, no, we're not doing this. Ringo was like, all right, but if they're not doing it, I'm not doing it, you know, because they just, I think Paul saw the movie. I think Paul and George saw the movie and they were like, this is shit, you know, as much as the Bee Gees were loved and as much as Peter Frampton was loved. And that's a movie that kind of almost ruined somebody's career because Steve Martin was in it.
Yes.
He doesn't say that was his first movie.
No, he never does.
He's just The Jerk was his first movie.
Yep.
And they were going to get they were going to get Kiss to play the you know the villainous future band or whatever they call FDB, future villainous band. And Gene Simmons is looking at the script. He says, "Wait a minute, we got to lose to Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees." Pass. And they got Aerosmith. Of course, Aerosmith looks like coked up and out of their.
I bet they
coked
were.
up to their eyeballs, you know. And they do a great version of "Come Together." But I was kind of like, you know, I like watching it. It's fun. It, you know, kind of brings back the spirit of '67. But sometimes you go to the wellspring of some rock and roll bands, and the Beatles. You know, God bless them, they're the greatest rock and roll band of all time. But don't try to, you know, don't try to make a movie around an album that you know will have characters named after songs. Yeah, you know.
Boy, and I think what we're learning even still with musicals today, Cats, thank you much, is just that so many people will, I know, it's the most unwatchable thing in quite some time, but like I know some people who will watch it just for fun, but I can't. It's just too annoying. But it's just kind of getting to that point where I'm just like, these guys, you can always tell when no one has read the script. If that's all you're getting. But I got a few other sci-fi ones for us here before we really go apeshit. Altogether, I mean, it's just kind of funny how you don't really know until it's too late how much of it is based on, you know, it didn't make any money, but it had nothing to do with the movie. You know, we've seen all kinds of stuff on the bottom 100 that, you know, I've seen, like Anna Be Real, I think is decent music drama, but it just didn't have a budget. And obviously, you know, we talked to death about several sequels. There's still plenty of others out there, and there's just too many. So I'll just mention the biggest offenders. You know, we got Jaws 3 and 4. We got just the Star Wars sequel.
I like Jaws 4.
Oh, wow. The first time?
I will say this, though. The more I watch, the more I'm like, why the fuck did they make it? But, you know.
Oh, damn.
I like what Michael Caine had at best. I never saw Jaws 4, but I saw the house that it bought.
Oh, yeah. And Martin and Peebles and company are trying to carry the movie when he's not on screen.
Oh, God.
And I mean, we got some other reboots and everything that just seem to vary. I know we're iffy on Star Wars, but I'm mainly iffy on, like, even just other stuff, like the new Halloween reboot trilogy, Jurassic World, Terminator Genesis. That's the second to last one. That one just pissed me off because it was like, when you mess with time travel, all you do is create more plot.
Yeah. Yeah. Has anybody seen the Flash movie yet? Or are you going to see the
I
Flash
have
movie?
not, but I'm told by Fandom Podcast Network that it is a good-looking hot mess.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely wait for cable if you have anything.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Superman Returns, I noticed everyone's kind of mixed on, and then there's a bunch of just different remakes like Get Carter and Solaris that just kind of just really piss so many off because they're just like, why did you mess with a great movie?
I'm going to say this about Superman. Okay. I'm sorry, Tom.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say I'm going to defend Get Carter. I absolutely love that movie.
Oh, you're in luck because Stallone considers it pretty underrated too. It's been a minute since I've seen it.
Yeah, but it is so well done. To me, it was so well done. Mickey Rourke plays an amazing scumbag.
I'm due for a rewatch. I'll try and give it another chance. I just recall just saying, speaking of Michael Caine, is like, the original's so fun. Yeah, I will give it another go. That director did actually go on to bigger stuff like Yellowstone, believe it or not. And I guess we talked about the Lone Ranger last time, but obviously it's not as bad as the 2013 one.
No.
That had like 20% on Rotten, like every movie site, and I saw it, and it was kind of a slow burn, kind of like both Lost in Space and the 01 Planet of the Apes, where I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? And then just the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, I want my time back. I want my time back. I really want my time back. Motherfucker, I want my time back. And yeah, it just kind of got to that point where it's just, I mean, even with 13 Ghosts and Ghost Ship, it was like, I like you guys' work on Tales from the Crypt. How did this get made? And why is it just so confusing?
House on Haunted Hill, the same way,
Yeah,
I thought
that one has some.
The remake was not that bad. Yeah. I mean, to have Jeffrey Rush do the Vincent Price part,
yes,
but it was like I really was like pining for the original,
Yeah,
because Vincent Price is just really good in it. Yes. You know what's going to happen later, don't you? I mean, just that creepiness in him,
that aura. Yeah. I'll say when the 2000s hit, though, like my mind was just flabbergasted at just how many movies you could tell didn't make any bank. Because usually it's like they would disappear slowly from theaters. Like I'd see a few simple thriller that had mixed reviews. There was one that really stood out to me, Trapped, starring a very young Charlize Theron, and Kevin Bacon was playing a psycho. But then there were even just other ones like Oh Free. There was a lot of hits, but then there was just infamously just movies that like didn't know what they were, like Tommy Wiseau's classic, so to speak, The Room, and then something virtually just like that, like Jiggly, where everyone is so afraid to even see it because the reviews are just like, even crowds are like, don't ever see it. It doesn't make any sense. And Martin Brest, great director, and apparently revealed in a Playboy interview years later that the movie was taken away from him because Sony wanted more of to play on the tabloids. And I'm like, and it is one of those movies, hey, if you really want to cut away just any bullshit, it might have been an okay dark comedy, but because everyone is just so fucking irritating and Pacino and Walken really don't connect to any of the supposedly deleted storyline, you're just when I saw it, like I was just flabbergasted. Like I saw like 2 ads for it, and then the following week, I fucking kid you not, maybe it was a month, but it wasn't far. No, it was actually next week. Coming to Stars in Encore. And I was like, it barely was in a theater.
They pulled it and then brought it right to Encore. I'll give you one better. X versus 7. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Yes.
X versus 7. That movie, I just saw it and it was like, this is like a cool movie. And then it's like all of a sudden it was like, wait, was it just out? I remember going into Blockbuster like 2 months later. It was out on DVD.
Yeah, and here's a connection. So that was Franchise Pictures. Andrew Stevens, the Stella Stevens' son, who ran all kinds of stuff. But yeah, he was pretty much doing his version of just canon films. Like, but I'm glad you brought up Ballistic. I did have the honor of talking to the director who confirmed a lot of what he's done in every interview since. They took it away from him. They wanted to make it too much like Matrix. And so I do hope one of these days, you can enjoy it in a fun Jim Cotta, Jason Bourne way, but it would, or Power Rangers, dare I say, but I would like to see an alternate cut of it. Just take out all the extra music, take all the other stuff, and just focus on all the dark conspiracy shit. You'll enjoy the performances way more. But yeah, franchise, they weren't done with that. After producing a lot of direct-to-video, shitty Seagal movies and some other HBO world premieres, they were helping out David Mamet with some projects he wanted. They helped him out with Heist. That's a decent, modest success with Gene Hackman and Danny DeVito. Then they followed up with Spartan, and that was the second time. I mean, I had heard of Ballistic, but it just kind of fizzled for me. I'm like, it looks like a fun, mindless action movie. This one comes out, I'm like, oh man, Val Kilmer's on fire. I know he's a pain in the ass, but he's a good actor, and it's a great dynamite movie. But it wasn't long from now. It went straight to HBO after that. Like after 2 weeks, it was the best rated movie that was literally grossed $12 or something ridiculous. They didn't know how to market it. I'm like, it's a spy movie. How can you not market that?
Well, here's a movie that didn't do well and then picked up a cult following. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yes. Oh, Shane Black, man. And to just
smart,
even
well written. You have two good leads in it. Two good leads in it.
They're on fire in that, and Kilmer definitely is really good in that because he
plays against type.
He plays against type, and you wait for him, and you love how you just see how he just convinces Downey to man up, and it's kind of like how Dolomite's almost a side parallel to Eddie Murphy's career. It's almost kind of a side parallel. Yeah. It's very meta with Downey's time at his point, where Joel Silver was like the only friend he had left.
And they made that movie, and I was like, okay, Downey's got some chops. Maybe if he sticks to it, he'll do better and stuff like. And then 5 years later, he's doing friggin' Iron Man.
Mm-hmm. I cannot believe that they almost wanted Tom Cruise. That would have been awful.
And well, let's go back a little bit because you have to remember there were some movies that came out in the the late '90s, early 2000s that kind of got buried in the shuffle. One that always comes up to me is Waterworld with Kevin Costner, and that came out in '96, I think, right?
And apparently on the recent Blu-ray, which is probably the best fan edit ever. That's crazy. Where you got all these fans who took the TV edits and extended scenes and remastered them and put it back into the main movie. But apparently on the documentary on the Blu-ray, they revealed that the set didn't actually sync. But enough shit talking spread, everyone was like, "Oh, it's a bomb, literal."
Yeah,
it's gonna sink.
It was one of those movies where everybody was going, "It's gonna tank," and people were going, "Well, how bad is it gonna tank?"
Right?
And it was like, let's think for a minute. Okay, it's Kevin Costner. He has, he's playing a fish man.
We say yes to everything he says.
You got Dennis Hopper in it,
It's kind of an imperfect version of, if you think about it, like Hopper's practically still in Blue Velvet speed mode, but David Twohy, I feel like he reused a lot of that in those Riddick movies he made, just the whole anti-hero with a supernatural human enhancement mutation,
Yeah. And then what the next, a couple years later, I went to go see Independence Day, right? And
at least it wasn't the sequel. Ooh.
No. But if you remember, a lot of people went to go see Independence Day. If I remember correctly, they were like, "Hey, there's a surprise before the movie," and we're like, "What?" My friend goes, "Yeah, there's a surprise before the movie, Jay. I think you'll like it." And it was the trailer for the special editions of Star Wars. Everybody cheered. Then the minute they put Independence Day on, everybody just shut up. But here's another one that
Flash Gordon.
No. I'm not gonna say Flash Gordon because Flash Gordon to me is a film.
I'm not bashing that or the Buck Rogers movies. I just mean that it was at that time every film history book was the worst movie ever. I'm like, and who you quoting?
No. I think
I'll tell you who they're quoting: blasphemers.
Oh,
yeah. The thing that to me kind of sank Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich was Godzilla.
Yes, great soundtrack.
Great soundtrack.
Atrocious fucking movie, but
atrocious fucking movie. And I mean, I've seen most of the Godzilla films. I saw Godzilla and Godzilla, with Raymond Burr.
Nice.
I've seen
Did
the original.
you see the 2000 War where they actually had the Zilla creature get destroyed by the real Godzilla?
Yeah. I was at a friend's house. We were watching it, and he's like, "Dude, you got to see this part." And I'm like, "What?" It's just so Zilla comes out, and it's like Godzilla just looks at it and goes, "Yeah, right."
When they first announced that, while I wasn't a fan of the movie, I just sounded very mean-natured. But lo and behold, it was very witty in terms of how it played out, and it actually played some wacky Japanese rock music during that. I was like,
yes,
I'll take it. It's not like the only thing worse when you accept supposedly non-canon reality is just pretty much just dick slap it even more, is like, that's beating a dead horse. I don't want to be reminded of this awful thing. It would be like, generally, if you brought the 2001 Planet of the Apes and tried to fix it, you can't fix it, but you brought it into the canon Planet of the Apes formula, it would be like, what the fuck are you thinking?
Yeah.
But this one, it somehow worked enough because the movie's just so campy, and the filmmaker just had some visually stunning, as well as just witty guys without being intrusive. So yeah.
I think the thing was too, like, when you look at monster movies, nobody was making big monster movies.
No, they were afraid of it. They just were like, we can't do better than, all these movies we're importing from overseas.
But you got to think too, also, like, remember they did 76, they did King Kong.
Mm-hmm. King Kong
and
Lives.
they bring in King Kong Lives, right? And then they do Godzilla in 1958. Yeah. And then they do Godzilla Returns, and they do the same goddamn thing they did with Raymond Burr in the first movie. Mm-hmm. They chop him in the movie. Oh my God, he's destroying Tokyo. Yeah. Oh my God, he's destroying the city.
I thought it was a blast when I first saw it, but it has not held up in repeat viewings just because, like you say, just the characters are just weak sauce, and the movie goes on way too long, even for a Godzilla movie. I know most of them are 2.5 hours like James Bond, but we just don't have that patience anymore unless we just have the fond memories and we can just, excuse it.
and speaking of James Bond, there's one movie that almost killed the series in the 70s, and that is Moonraker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hot shit. I cannot watch it. I
can't watch it because they if you watch the Spy Who Loved Me, right? Mm-hmm. Remember how you say James Bond will be back? It was the first
one I saw. It was on TV the most, and I just was like, "See, this is why people like Bond. He has a cool car. He's naughty. He's got innuendo. It's fun." Yeah.
If you watch it, 76, they do the Spy Who Loved Me, right?
You're right.
And it says at the end, James Bond will be back in For Your Eyes Only, right? Okay, so 77, Star Wars comes along. Cubby Broccoli says, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna take the movie Moonraker and put James Bond in outer space.
We're gonna say no to everyone." Yeah.
Fuck were you thinking? I mean, we like,
said no to Spielberg directing, but we're still gonna rip off his buddy Lucas. So that's why I'm always glad, because Indiana Jones stands so well on its own 2 feet. But then when you realize it's like, this is their revenge against Bond producers not giving them a chance against their favorite characters, like, yeah, that is kind of shitty.
But I mean, the movie is just like, my God,
so dull. Don't call it action if there's action only in the last 20 seconds and it's all just pew pew crapola.
Yeah, if it's like that, yeah.
If I want that, I'll watch Space Mutiny because that's at least amusing.
Yeah, and at least there's a little more character, but you have Jaws on the space station with the geeky looking girl who is really hot in real life. And then you got Lois Childs playing Dr. Holly Goodhead, and
I love that name so much.
And here's a funny thing: Mego put out the James Bond figures for Moonraker?
Yes, they did.
Yes.
Oh,
So they had Jaws, I think Drax, Bond, and then they had They couldn't put Dr. Holly Goodhead. They just put Dr. Holly on there because if it was like Doctor, what does it mean by Goodhead? Okay. But yeah, Moonraker.
Ask your parents or don't.
Moonraker to me was just a shit deal. Just like my parents and me went to go see it, and I was like 79, so I was about 4 years old. It's James Bond. What do JJ loves James Bond. Let's go see. Let's go watch it. And my mother and my father were watching it, and we were like, okay. The cool thing is Shirley Bassey's doing the the theme song. Good song. Okay,
very
fine.
talented composer. Yeah.
Who wrote the song? I think Leslie Brickus and the other guy wrote, but she sang it. She's one of the first. She's one of the first ladies to do the 3 Bond songs.
Yep, Shirley Bassey said it. You had it right.
Yep. And John then, Barry. And it was like, okay, we'll put Bond in outer space. It'll be fun. Star Wars. Everybody loves Star Wars. Let's go put James Bond in outer space. And they didn't realize that people didn't want to see James Bond in outer space.
No, and
people want to see James Bond in with his Walther PPK. That's why when they did For Your Eyes Only, it was more grittier. Yes. It was more down to earth. That's why it was like, wait, what movie? What movie was before this? Okay, no, don't worry about it.
Now there's a movie that I absolutely loved from the 80s, sci-fi. It goes that I really enjoyed, but I don't think too many other people did. The movie called Time Rider.
Yeah, with Peter Coyote.
Oh God, yeah.
There you go. That's a good one. It's better than Timeline.
The Adventures of Lyle Swan, Time Rider. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Fred Ward and Richard Mazer, and I think
Peter Coyote.
Who played Peter Coyote was in it. And produced by my favorite monkey,
Michael Nesmith. And I go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I read a piece by PJ O'Rourke, who'd actually written with Michael Nesmith's team on this Baja. And and it came out that Mike came up with the idea for Time Rider while doing this race.
Yeah,
Baja 500.
Yes,
there's the one. All right,
but in either case, it was like, I'm not sure why more people don't like this. It is. I mean, granted, it was esoteric for the time, but yeah, exactly. But it was so good, and I still remember seeing to this day, even though I hadn't seen it for decades. I still remembered certain scenes because they were so visually stunning that they just stuck out to me.
Yeah,
there's
good stuff.
Now you're speaking of Fred Ward. There's another movie that he did that. Yeah, Fred Ward, God bless him. Fred Ward did called Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins.
Yes.
Spy movie. And like Jim people are just always unkind to spy movies. I don't know why only James Bond, Jason Bourne are
I think that movie is, to me, a parallel unto its own, because you have the great story of, the guy who's, he's a cop, he's selected by these the shadow organization that's going after another shadow organization, and they're the good guys, and they're trying to stop this guy from ruling the world or something like that. And he's trained by Joel Grey, who just won a Lifetime Tony Award the other night.
There you go.
And I they make Joel Grey look like he's like Korean, and I love the fact that his name is Chung, and he's the master of Sananju. And Fred Ward, God bless him. Fred Ward was so good in that movie. You know, he should have done better. He should have done better. You know, that should have kept going, because those Destroyer novels. I mean, the guy who wrote them is kind of was a little bit of a right wing nutcase, but they were really. It was really fun to watch that
As
movie.
we do,
You know,
it's kind of like The Hunted, that William Friedkin movie with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro.
yeah.
Same kind of deal where they just got this guy who claimed he knew things and freaking was mad enough to believe all his bullshit. And you're like, yeah, this sounds like a guy doing Rambo cosplay in the woods. But they used him as the supervisor on the movie. Fun movie, but same kind of deal. It's just like spy movies just generally always had a high user score and just made okay money and just shit reviews. It's just like that's a subgenre that really does need some fun. It just gets annoying when you have to tell people, hey, it doesn't always have to be a revenge movie. It can be more than just even the Equalizer, John Wick. It can also be all kinds of other just cool assassin mayhem. Ishtar Ishtar is definitely the worst spy movie ever made.
It could be Spies Like Us or Top Secret.
Yep. or what's the other one that I love? That's like it's so off the wall. It's like, well,
Shadow Conspiracy. Did you ever see that one? It's like Hot Shots.
No.
In on the joke. And Linda Hamilton, Charlie Sheen run away from a bunch of assassins hired by the president's secretary, and it is just crazy. It's not as bad as White House Down. Now that was bad. Oh my god.
Now I'm gonna say this about Ishtar.
Yeah.
If you watch it now, it's funny. If you watch it then, you didn't get the joke. And the joke was, here are two guys, Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman, who are playing losers.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win. On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
And the great thing about Elaine May is Elaine May almost she just stopped directing after that.
Yeah, she and Betty were not.
She's done some great movies,
Mm-hmm.
But with Ishtar, it was like the word of mouth had gotten around.
Yep.
But when you watch it, you're laughing hysterically because it's like they're like Abbott and Costello, They're two of the biggest stars in the history of movies.
I do like Carol Kane in that movie. I will give you that.
Yeah, and Isabella Adjani is in it too.
That's right.
Yeah, she plays the operative that they meet, and
the guy playing the CIA guy trying to kill him was weird. I think that's what just derailed it for me.
It's like that movie. Now you look at it, they're like, people have said, oh, it's not. You think about it, it's you reevaluate it. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny to watch.
There's plenty of other ones. I'll go through a few others. Solar Crisis was this ambitious sci-fi movie that was dead on arrival because most people just were trying to guess who's the Alan Smithy guy attached. And it's like, well, it's relevant. It's a decent 2 a.m. movie with decent visuals. It's just everyone just wanted
Wait,
to
was that the one with Charlton Heston?
Mm-hmm. Some people found it confusing. Other people found it boring. I'm just like, it's okay. I just would like to see a director's cut of it someday. Bonfire.
Okay, where soul is evolved from men?
Yeah, men. I would pay to see him do that in every movie. Then
I'm going to go to the sun.
I'm gonna go.
The big yellow one's the sun. Charlton Heston is Brian Regan. The big yellow one's the sun. Okay.
Brian Regan should totally be a movie star. He is amazing. And then there's striptease, showgirls, bonfire of the
Oh
Vanities.
God.
Oh.
I remember
on
the hype.
Yeah.
The hype around showgirls.
I looked out. I have only to this day, I mean, I've seen R-rated clips, but I have for the most part only seen the VH1 edit. And so I never had a chance to say, maybe it's not that. I was like, no, reject. I know what it's saying. It's just not doing it well. I love Verhoeven's satirical humor, but this is just too heavy handed. And I can't tell if this is just it just feels too much like a B movie. And
I can remember the hype around it because it was Elizabeth Berkley. She was just coming off,
your favorite sitcom stars are going to be butt ass naked.
Yeah.
And everybody, and all of a sudden Gina Gershon was in that movie. So she became like the it girl. I remember like that year, 94, 95, 96, it got to be really weird. And I remember like there was like Striptease came out. Yeah. And that was supposed to be like a big hit. That
Tarantino movie. And again, everyone wants to go just for the lowest common denominator versus what it's actually about.
And what was the one like Barbed Wire came out?
Barbed Wire.
Everybody went nuts with Barbed Wire and that's funny because Gramercy Pictures had two movies that spring and summer that were coming out. MST3K, which did not get what it should have gotten, and then Barbed Wire. So like I remember going to the movies and said Barbed Wire on 5 screens. 3 days later, go Barbed Wire on 3 screens, Barbed Wire on 2 screens, because it did, Tank Girl, I remember that came out.
Right? Yeah.
Everybody was going out, everybody's the Tank Girl's gonna be some great movie. It just didn't do what it was supposed to do. There was such an audience for it,
Ice-T joked about how that was the first time he got paid $1 million.
Now, Cam, I do have to correct you on one point here about Showgirls. It wasn't a B movie. It was certainly at least a double D movie.
I remember Playboy doing this spread, and I remember like they were doing the spread. They were doing the spread in Playboy, and I'm like, Elizabeth Berkley's not that hot.
Yeah.
Because and I love that one line. She goes, "I'm not a whore. I'm a dancer," and I'm like,
what the hell does that even mean?
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger in what was the one Raw Deal?
Yeah,
drinking and baking don't mix.
Yeah, now that's a good point. Mix. That and Collateral Damage are definitely Arnold movies that have not done as hot. But Damage has literally no redeeming things. Like the director wanted to do kind of like a 911 propaganda movie, and I just was like, this is like Sudden Death or Die Hard, or Clear and Present Danger for that matter, since there's a lot of those actors, but dull. Like I've seen this all before. The villain is a very good actor. He's been in stuff like Once Were Warriors and Training Day, but again, like I can see what's going to happen before it happens. So this is like generic shit that really all that anyone talks about nowadays is it was Bill Hader's one of his first gigs as a PA.
Yeah.
I talked about this with Tom, so he's already heard it, but I do find it funny how it just took like out of all the Arnold movies, I'll revisit Junior any day over this shit fest.
Yeah.
Well, that's when Arnold started to have like the downward spiral with his films.
Yeah,
he had that. He had the
before he robbed the Kennedys.
6th Day. Don't.
Yeah.
6 Days.
I think you just started looking at the box office returns and said, "All right, I'm running for governor."
You're right. This is not a place for me anymore. Hey, Maria, damn it, woman! What are those connections you got? And then but I do like about the 80s and 90s is that there's all these do-it-yourself movies that were just like drive-in and video store hits, and just people have just continually with the internet just rediscovered. Like, that's the closest we're gonna get to Superman 4, like the Nuclear Man, is this movie called Champagne and Bullets, also known as Road to Revenge, with William Smith and Wings Hosher. And it's just one of those. It's like I knew about it before I actually saw it. It was just like, what the hell is that? And I'm just this cheesy looking guy with a shotgun, and it's the guy is the same kind of deal. The guy is now like his own legal attorney firm, and I'm like, how do you go from this stupid ego project to being a different day job? Go
I'll give you one that's like that too. There was a movie that came out in the 80s called Puma Man.
Oh yes,
Yes.
Puma Man.
Okay.
Man, he
Makes
flies
his-
like a
Like a moron.
I'll take it over After Earth, Oblivion, or The Happening. Promise.
Well, that was supposed to be. That was like a big. I don't think it got released in the States. It was more in Europe. But then
Yeah.
you know, it's like you watch it and you're like, okay, we're gonna jump on the whole Superman bandwagon
The
thing.
guy goes from Fitzcarraldo to this, and
Yeah, the big giant guy goes from like Fitzcarraldo to this, and you've got
back to playing henchman again because he just can't carry the movie.
Pleasance is overacting. You know,
Yeah,
I think Donald
Pleasance.
Pleasance at that time was like doing like that, and then Warrior of the Lost World.
Like all
Yes.
he just didn't care. Are you surprised no one's attempted to remake Zardoz?
No, I'm not surprised because who the hell can? I mean, at that point, what Connery walked away from Bond, right?
Yeah.
He takes this project. It's a low budget. You know, it is a low budget film. I mean, Connery was like, he was driving himself to the set every day. You know, and this is when Connery was making, like, he kind of had a downturn. You know, he did some great movies. You know, The Offense, the Molly Maguires. You know,
great Sidney Lumet stuff. Just stuff that you're like, that's not the same Sean Connery and this and that. You know.
Yeah, and and then he does Meteor. And
I love that
Wrong
one.
is Right. And I don't think he kind of hit it on the head again. I mean, till he did, I think, The Man Who Would Be King. But then he did
Total Sleeper.
But then he did he did Outland.
Oh yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah.
Didn't make I don't think it made a lot of money. But then he came back to do The Wind and the Lion, which was a great movie too.
More John Milius movies and productions, and then after Highlander Indy, he just kind of continues kind of that same kind of deal. Like he kind of just wants to do a LeMay worthy kind of ensemble drama.
He loved Lumet. He loved Lumet, from what I understand.
Lumet's an actor's director.
The sad thing about this, and I said, well, you bring up Highlander. Highlander was hyped.
Yeah, it did not make any money.
Yes.
It didn't make any money, and then
critics left it off. They're like, the director of Video Killed the Radio Star, get out of here.
It was, Russell Mulcahy was like, all right, I gotta, there's a way to find.
It was kind of like Hellraiser. It was, it did bank, and so people already wanted to make sequels, but it did not catch on until just repeat movie channel airings. Is like,
HBO had it, and now there's another cut of it that came out. I think
Highlander's been on. See what I did there? It's not Beastmasters on.
No. Anyway. Highlander was great. They did Highlander 2.
Mm-hmm.
They did 3, and I was like, okay, I don't know what the hell's going on here.
I don't mind part 4 on repeat viewings, but it also has a very troubled history to where it's just like, it's like these producers kept selling it to other investors who, as a result, ended up owning these movies. So as a result, they either had to buy them back or just do a director's cut when it came to video, because it's like, my God, talk about bad luck, talk about a curse. It's just
you got to think too. Like Lambert has done a good, Lambert did a great job. Yeah. Clancy Brown is no slouch.
Always love it.
And you got to think too. It had a great soundtrack by Queen.
Yes, it did. Oh man, I can't imagine it without that soundtrack.
Yeah, so to me, it was like, okay, all the elements are there. You got a rock and roll soundtrack by one of the greatest bands of all time. Mm-hmm. You got a really good story about, these, but it just didn't catch on because I think a lot of people weren't into the sword and sorcery bit. Same thing with Lou Ferrigno and Hercules.
Right. If you deviated from it, you were dead in the water, or just label a Conan knockoff.
Yeah, and there's another point there.
And the Destroyer.
There's another point. You had Red Sonja. With Brigitte Nielsen. And Arnold was just asked, "Hey, can you come in and do some scenes?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." He comes in as Prince Caldor, which is like, I'm thinking to myself, he's named after a place that has slacks. And, and at some point, they said, well, isn't that Conan? And they're like, well, somebody said, well, yeah, it is. He's just under another name. But I mean, the movie was just like, it's like Conan the Destroyer.
Yep.
The first movie, Conan the Barbarian, one of the best action movies of the 80s, right?
Totally.
They do Conan the Destroyer. They can't get John Milius back. They bring in Richard Fleischer. They tone it down a little bit.
Yep.
So there's not a lot of blood and guts and stuff because they wanted to make it more family friendly. Because if you watch the movie, it's there's not a lot of guys getting chopped open or anything like that.
Yep.
It's more of a
it's not focused on that. Yeah.
It's not focused on the gore, which I thought was great in that movie, and it was dark. This was more lighter tone,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't get they didn't get Subutai back. They had the guy who was the guy who played Bob in Batman as like Tracy Walter.
Oh.
Tracy Walter came in.
Yeah, so it was. Yeah.
To play the thief guy, which I thought was really funny, So, but yeah, I mean, like, you got to think too, I think the 80s and the 90s, I think there was a lot of, people were waiting for something to come up and be like, boom, okay.
Yowza.
Like, you got to think, like, there's a movie, 1999 is a really weird year for movies because Star Wars comes back, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything that was released after that point basically falls in the wake.
They don't know how to interpret it. They're like, wait,
they can't. I mean, South Park, yeah, that was great to watch. But there's a movie out there that I think deserves another look, and I think it bombed and that's Mystery Men.
Yes.
Oh yes.
And now the stories have been coming out. I had no idea that it did so poorly because it was just on TV so much. But then I had even less of an idea on how Stiller still refuses to name it, but it's pretty well known. He and Greg Kinnear were not getting along on that movie, but it's somehow, and the director was a newbie, but it was one of those. It did not get sunk. It just recouped its budget, and even though they never did a sequel, it was just interesting to just see what happens when someone, the pieces are there, but sometimes there's some occasional just interruptions, and that was kind of what it was. But yeah, nowadays it is kind of a gem. It's kind of the last action hero of '99, where it's just there's the one.
I think it was trying to bring back a lot of the stuff. Like, the thing I love about that movie is that you've got Stiller, Jeannie Garofalo, you've got
William H. Macy.
Jeffrey Rush is
Oh, that's right.
What was that?
William H. Macy.
Yes.
H. Macy.
I'm the shoveler. I shovel. I shovel well.
Hank Azaria is the Blue Raja.
Oh, he was hysterical.
Pee Wee Herman and Paul Rubin. What was his name? And then you've got was it Keenan Thompson or
I think it was Kel Mitchell.
Which one of those guys?
Kel Mitchell. Yeah, I know.
Mitchell. Yeah, he could turn invisible, but the thing was he was totally visible. And it was just it's a good plot. It's a good idea, but you got to realize they were doing it to get the people into the theaters, to see what was going on. And you had a juggernaut that year with the Phantom Menace,
Yep.
And unfortunately, now you look back on it, you think how many people saw it 5 times, and they're like, oh, gee, I wonder what else was in the movie theater,
Oh man.
The one thing I will go ahead.
By the 2000s, then we get other stuff that, Ad Astra, Battlefield Earth, and then Gods of Egypt, which is like a bad Stargate episode. And the one that puzzles me the most is Mission to Mars, The Astronaut's Wife, even Red Planet, just all these movies that could be decent 50s, 70s B pictures, but somehow, even Supernova, which is a total cluster, you're just wondering, hey, was this movie rescuable, or did they literally just knock it stone cold dead? And then they try to do it in animation, like Treasure Island, Titan AE, Atlantis, Lost Empire, and I'm just like, what is just not working? Why are these just tanking like no tomorrow. Was everyone missing? And De Palma had already had a bad run with like Bonfire of the Vanities and Raising Cain, and he's just been getting even worse. He came out with Domino, which is a very confusing and underwhelming spy movie, and you're just like, where did the money go? And then you find out he did it like as a pro bono for like a French company who was a fan of his work, but then last minute they turned the tables on him again. So bad luck strikes him again. And it's nothing crazy, bad, cheesy like Ice Pirates or anything, but it is one of those just like, what is going on here? Like, I've seen too many spy movies. I know what's going to happen. And next thing you know, he disowns this movie Domino before it even comes out. And I've seen plenty of other movies that are kind of underrated in how good they are, or underrated in how bad they are. Like, I will totally do a double feature of Flash Gordon followed by Battlefield Earth. That would just be batshit stupid fun.
But the thing was, Battlefield Earth was so unrelatable to people. And I can remember the toy. There were toys that came out for Battlefield Earth.
Yes, like Waterworld.
And
it just kind of came and went, and people, the making of it still fascinates me to this day. And Roger Christian said in a podcast interview that he and Lucas were actually, and Tarantino were clapping all together while that movie was playing. It's like, wow. Tarantino makes sense. He likes crazy shit. Lucas, well, I guess he figured it was no different than Star Wars. So that is an interesting take. But yeah, then there's some other.
You got to think too.
Go ahead.
You got to think too. That's like a religious epic for Travolta, because
and he has recently been on the record saying that is his Schindler's List of sci-fi.
Oh God!
How dare you? How dare you compare the Holocaust to a shitty movie based on a religion where you talk to vegetables?
Based on
how dare you?
A rapist alien cult. Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And it is also very confusing at times to where, I mean, critics have all known it. It's like the ending of Independence Day is ripped off, but then they have the nerve to take the safe scene from Raiders in the last frame. I'm like, why? That has nothing to do with anything. In fact, that might have explained some.
Wait, hold on. Wait. What happened?
Remember in the finale of Battlefield Earth, you see Travolta laughing evilly in his cell, and there's a big Dutch angle, like a wide shot, and it's literally the exact same frame as Raiders of the Lost Ark, how it ends.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I wish I was making it up. People would say that. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I forced myself to watch the movie again when I had finally embraced it as a shitty movie that's kind of fun. And I was like, they're not joking. And it's like, even the Matrix edits of the slow motion is just incessant. What do the aliens really want if they really have pretty much fucked up all the resources? They're kind of just doing a turf war. I think it would have been better had they just focused on the rebellion and not try to do too much, but that's an understatement. Then there's other kind of sci-fi stuff that just blows my mind, like Alex Cox, who you might know from that Estevez movie. What's that one? Repo Man. Yes, he does a crazy kind of war satire that everyone is just confused by, and made Roger Ebert's worst list, called Walker. I remember seeing it. I'm like, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Ed Harris.
Oh my God.
It's just very confusing. Like, it's like definitely Verhoeven on a bad day, but it's also like, I can't believe it's even Alex Cox, because Alex Cox usually kind of gets you ready to do all his kind of batshit visions and everything. And this one was just like, I really do not know what to follow. Clearly Ed Harris and company thought it was a decent movie, but even then I doubt they can explain what it was. There was a Peter Pan movie in 2015 that was a hot mess, called Just Pan.
Wait,
with Hugh Jackman as Captain Hook.
Was that?
Yeah, they had a whitewashed like Native American as Tiger Lily, but then it was just like, what is this really about? This is so fucking confusing. Again, it's like people just are so attached to a movie, they don't realize how underwhelming and confusing it can be. If I don't know what to follow, what do I do?
Well, here's the thing that gets me is, like, you got Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
He does Hook, which, a lot of people had high hopes for, and then I watched it. I remember I watched it, and like 2 weeks later, my high school girlfriend broke up with me. So that's why I don't like the movie.
It's pretty imperfect. It's the performances are there. It's just kind of. I was looking at this with some other flops. Like I resaw Free Jack the other day, and I can see why it's divided. Yeah, it's the 2 a.m. crazy cheese fest. There's a reason it's on TBS a lot, but it's one of those. I think there's just too much dead space in between the stuff that does work, and I kind of got that same just of Hook.
Mick Jagger is a future alien cop. All right, let's do it. God,
let's do it. Yeah. But yeah, it seems like half these movies just get overloaded because they don't know when to just cut away onto the next scene. They're not even trashy in a silly way like Cyborg. But I
kind of felt the same way about Johnny Mnemonic. It's one of those movies that
it's a great. If you watch the uncut German, Blu-ray, you'll see the movie was meant to be. And I've tried to convince people to watch that version, and the pain of the original was too much for it. I'm like, trust me.
No, I'm on the opposite side of that. I love Johnny Mnemonic. It's one of those I like to watch over and over again.
I figured it was a flawed movie that had a better movie in there, but like if you see the uncut version, like before Sony took it away from that director, he had done like a bunch of music videos and a Tales from the Crypt episode. That's the one where Sonia Braga and Dylan McDermott get infected and are dying. But I saw it uncut. It's way more like Blade Runner instead of the confusing, fun, overacted movie, and like it's rescored and everything. It's a whole different movie, and I cannot convince anyone to watch it. Like you actually also get some villain insight, so you see why Takeshi Kitano and Dolph, what their motive is, other than they pop out of nowhere and try to slice off Keanu's head, and Keanu actually gets a different opening. Like it begins totally different. Like he's just seen a prostitute for the night, and she says something that reminds him of how robotic his world has become. And it's like, see, that's what the theatrical version needed, instead of just adding more metal and more gory violence. That didn't make
sense. I'll say this about that movie. That was getting Keanu ready for The Matrix, to be honest.
It absolutely did.
Yes.
I think
he did another movie called Replicants.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It had some decent cast who had done some other thrillers, and no one talks about it. And I saw it on Cinemax one day, and I was just like, I will never understand why some movies just aren't given a chance. It's not deep, but it's not bad.
There's one that I've always kind of looked and went, why didn't this do better? Why didn't this do better?
Yeah.
And it's a movie that Paul Verhoeven did with Rutger Hauer called Flesh and Blood.
Yes. And I love how he gets away at the very end, and he never answers for his crimes. It's like the most anti-movie ever, and it's even make it the same kind of deal. It's just American audiences see it and they just react to all the gore and shocking sex and likable heroes.
Yeah,
but they are not. Half of them are not getting his intended satirical, how he's making fun of the sword and scandal thing while also showing what it would have been like. His latest movie about the lesbian nun, that was good too, but it's the same thing.
Did he pass away, or was that Joe Esterhaus?
Nope, they're still alive. But I have no idea. But the lesbian nun movie, that had some good reviews, but I saw some critics who still seem to think Verhoeven is just a trashy, schlocky filmmaker. And I'm like, what are you talking about? But then I see people walking out of this movie. I see it on Hulu. I'm like, hey, it's imperfect, but it's pretty solid. And it's kind of like Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future. Same kind of deal. I saw people walking out of that one. I'm like, do you not know who Cronenberg is? Whatever.
You see, and that's what gets me is like when people start saying, it's a bomb, and you're like, no, it's not. It's a good movie. You got to watch it.
Gory, therefore it must be schlocky or lesser. I'm like, or maybe that's just the movie. It seems like it's also depends on the scenario. It seems like audiences will eat up gore if it's a war movie or horror film, but if it's anything else, they just shit on it. They're like, gratuitous. I'm like, what's gratuitous?
I remember everybody talking about like the Blair Witch Project in 98,
as well as the sequel Shadows. And then
they do the sequel, and it's like, this is not what we wanted.
No.
This is not what we wanted here. We want
Ryan Murphy wrote it.
we leave the fuck alone, And then there's I remember they were doing all the slasher flicks, like My Bloody,
all the paranormal crap, all that,
all that stuff. I mean, that stuff. Everybody, they show you everybody getting scared, but does it really scare you? No, it doesn't.
It turned me off of horror for a while until I revisited stuff that was kind of action-y, but it had monsters in it. So like some of the Universal homages, as well as Wishmaster, I just thought those were as close as we were going to get to like a Universal or Hammer horror movie, and let alone a Gremlins movie.
I'll give you a great case in point of a movie that bombed, and it got hype, but it was just like, oh boy, was it bad. The Adventure of Ford Fairlane.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. That and the Marlboro Man just confused me because I'm
Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man, and the Adventures of Ford Fairlane came out in 91. And it was being hyped as Andrew Dice Clay like you've never seen him before. Ford Fairlane is a rock and roll detective. Now, I found out that the movie, when it opened, made X amount of dollars its opening weekend, that they were actually pulling it like from the movies. They were actually pulling it from some movie theaters.
Renee Harlan's not worse though, like Cutthroat Island.
Well, you got to realize too. Also, Cutthroat Island. Yeah,
I cannot watch that movie, and I see people saying it's not that bad. I'm like,
it's bad.
I have never been able to watch it, and I would watch basically anything that was on UPN back in the day, and I was just like, can they please stop airing this? That the commercials are more interesting.
And you have to think about it. The reason why it didn't make a lot of money, Ford Fairlane, was because it wasn't because of Dice. It was the controversy around Dice.
That's the other thing. They'll politicize an actor if he's in it. Jamie Foxx has just announced that he did a movie which he co-starred and acted in, and he completed it back in 2016. It got scrapped because Jeremy Piven was in it. 70 plus like women he's slapped or attempted to assault. But then what's stupid though, unlike that where Clay didn't ask to be canceled, Jamie Foxx is doing the whole, he's taking after Chappelle. He's like, oh, they're going to cancel me. I'm like, go fuck yourself, Jamie. If you want to do a good movie, do a good movie. But stop acting like other people are making your life hell. You could literally, he's a millionaire. He could literally self-distribute this movie if he really wanted to. But I think right now, instead of doing just gross out comedies like Adam Sandler by the dozen, it just seems like now we're just back to, again, just sci-fi epics that don't make any money. I remember seeing John Carter, and I saw why everyone was kind of mixed on it. I was like, okay, so there's some questionable acting, but it's kind of a epic movie. But then I see Ender's Game. I really actually dug Harrison Ford and Ben Kingsley in that, and it was dead on arrival just because of controversies of the author. He apparently had statutory shit. He's a piece of shit. But I'm like, this is pretty straightforward, deep sci-fi, like The Expanse. I don't see why it didn't do well, especially when, critics love having a boner over a Gothica kind of sci-fi, and I just didn't make any money. And despite having Harrison Ford, people are like, pass, he looks old. I'm like, what? Damn, crowds are just ruthless. Bastards.
And going back to the supernatural movies for a second, I don't know how well it did, but there's a movie that I loved and still do called Stir of Echoes.
That is a good one.
God, that's an amazing
Probably one
movie.
of the few respectable horror movies that was kind of like The Shining, just trying to be a legit freaky mystery instead of having its ending get ruined like The Sixth Sense, or more like it wasn't like Final Destination where people remember the deaths and none of the characters or motivation. You're just like, people. And Kevin Bacon is just phenomenal, and I really do wish Catherine and Irby, I know this was before Oz and Law and Order, but I just really wish she could have had a bigger movie career, because she really, I feel her pain when she just speaks, she just is good at that type of drama. And then, it's just David Cope, whenever people say I didn't care for Mordecai and something, I'm like, but he is a competent director and screenwriter on a good day. So you're not sometimes you get Jurassic Park, then you get the Lost World Jurassic Park, but other days you get really solid scripts like Panic Room and the first Spider-Man. You know, it's
Yeah, and then going on the other side, and going on the other extreme here for a sci-fi movie that I think should have bombed and may have, Minority Report.
Yeah, and it shouldn't have worked, but it was a big hit. But
it shouldn't have worked. I mean, I was sitting here watching it in the theaters. I was thoroughly enthralled with it, and then all of a sudden, I see a plot hole. Then I see another one, and another one. It's like that took me out of the movie. But everybody's like, "Oh, it's so fantastic!" It's like, dude, if I'm doing that kind of fact checking in real time, I'm not going to enjoy the movie, and the movie should have worked better. It didn't. The holes were too hard for me to overcome.
I think it has less holes than Collateral, though.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that gets me too is like if you watch a movie like Minority Report, or if you watch a movie like there's some movies where I'm like, where the fuck did this come? Who the
It was a Total Recall sequel.
Yeah,
Van de Bont stole it from his mentor, and then never made it. He made other movies kind of similar to it, but it was a Spielberg joint. The screenwriter, I think it's more interesting if you look at it from a Homeland Security deal. Like, this is how fucked up the future is going to be, than if you look at it from a Blade Runner type movie. But yeah, it's a like it or hate it. I'll take it any day over Paycheck, though. Oh my god, Ben Affleck and Uma Thurman running away from future assassins, and again, another Philip K. Dick type inspired thing. And I'm just like, okay, so let's say you didn't care for Minority Report. Even then, like, this movie, like, this doesn't deserve to be called a John Woo movie if he's for hire. And I kid you not, he dishes the whole movie on the commentary track. It didn't want to make this movie, and then I'm like, great intro.
I'll tell you what screwed me up was like when they were redoing a lot of they redid the Avengers.
Yeah, and the Wolfman. Don't forget the Wolfman.
The Wolfman to me was.
It was okay, but it was too slow.
That's the Mummy too. That when they redid the Mummy,
the 2018 one, I had that on my list here.
That was such a piece of trash.
I knew it was gonna suck the minute I saw the trailer, and then I saw people saying it doesn't look that bad. I'm like, are we seriously looking at the same thing here? Like, I have had people tell me certain shows CGI graphics look shitty. I'm like, no, Battlestar Galactica and Last Ship, those graphics fly. This is a trailer for a big budget movie. And Kurtzman, the director, worked on some of the new Star Trek shows. He apparently was on the record saying, I'm looking forward to working with Tom Cruise. I wrote one of his Mission Impossible movies. Sure enough, Tom Cruise keeps rewriting stuff daily. I'm like, and my siblings saw that trailer in the theater, and they're like, is that a Mission Impossible movie? And then at the end, Mummy coming this summer. I'm like,
the Avengers movie, the one when they remade the Avengers.
They're quite a lot tonight, aren't they?
It to me was a slap in the face because you could have gotten somebody else. I mean, granted, I love Uma Thurman, and she bounced back from that doing Kill Bill.
More Tarantino stuff. But yeah, that movie is pretty sloppy because you're just wondering, much like Lost in Space that same year, you're just like, who is this for? Because you're not I would compare it actually probably to the A-Team movie. And as much as I like Liam Neeson, I'm just like, I saw it and I was just like, it's just it's too static, it's too robotic. You don't have to be a fan of the campy show to like this, but it just doesn't have any oomph, no driving force. I've seen a billion better movies.
And Cam, to answer your question about who they made the Avengers movie for,
that
was one of the.
That's fine.
That was one of the ones where I could understand the hate, but for me, it was just
cheese.
It was cheesy fun, and
trash. You know where I first saw it? I first saw it on the Weather Channel. Not even making that up. All because of the fucking villain's weapon. I'm like, oh man. Well, I'll tell you this. I do like making fun of Batman and Robin. Just like The Room. It's infectious. I can't not make fun of it. George Clooney being Odin, Chris O'Donnell being confusing, the back credit card. I'm like, I know we talked about it already, but I'm just like, it's just so fucking stupid. But I just love how what was trending as soon as he passed away, they were like, release the Batman Forever cut, more scenes of Jim Carrey as the Riddler. I'm like, you know what? I might check that out if they ever unleash it. There's a few other duds. Did you guys force yourselves to watch Midsummer?
Yeah.
I am just
my wife did.
Oh,
my wife
man.
did.
And I see people who will just bash all kinds of other junky 80s movies. I'm like, see, this don't bash Monos, bash this movie. This is like the most nihilistic piece of shit I've seen. And I saw the director's cut, so don't say I didn't know what I was watching. I was just like, 1 minute it's trying to be a dark comedy, then the next minute it's an exploitation movie, then it's like a social commentary female empowerment movie. But I'm like, I don't get any of this. This is just I will say it's good cinematography. That is all you're getting from me. It's technically a 2.5 out of 5-star movie, but I hated it so much I would give it a negative 100. I'm just like,
it's a remake. Was that the remake of The Wicker Man?
People have been joking about that. It had Wicker Man vibes, but yeah, Ari Aster just I can't read that fucker. He just sounds like he is just so in love with sucking himself off, and I'm like, so who is this for, other than the A24 weirdos?
I'll tell you who. It's for the bees. The bees.
Yeah, there you go. All the cagesters. Yeah, I can't recommend it at all. I don't think it's well made at all. Now, Gods of Egypt. That is the craziest Stargate episode I have ever seen, and not in a good way. But I just find it funny how, I actually legit like Gerard Butler in a Sean Connery kind of way. But yeah, that is one where everyone just looks either furious or just confused or just very over-edited. Like, what's going on? But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just
I even bought the Blu-ray and invited people over to do a movie riffing, and everyone was like, pass. It's like one movie they won't do. It's got to be something goofy like Hard Rock Zombies or some other trashy, or something already deliberately campy like The Monster Squad, and they would not touch it. They're like, yeah, I saw the trailer, love Gerard and Chadwick Boseman. That no.
The thing I always said about the 90s, like the 90s and the 2000s, the early 2000s, was there was such a glut of movies, it wasn't even funny sometimes.
It really wasn't.
It was
every other, every other NBA or rapper was getting their own movie, and then there were just other ones where you're just like, yeah, I feel like this is a bad 70s idea recreated here in the 90s.
Like, you had some really original pictures. Like, you had El Mariachi with
yep.
And
Rodriguez.
then you'd have like, Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. That sets the world on its ear.
Yep.
You've got Kevin Smith. But then all of a sudden you have like these big producers making these movies where it's like
Swimming with Sharks and all other kinds of just
it's
twisted
like,
movies like Usual Suspects, and you're like, hey, regardless of who worked on this or if they're a piece of shit, that's just a well done movie.
Well, Usual Suspects is a very well done movie in my opinion, and it's a great,
I don't understand that either.
It's a great switcheroo movie,
right?
But the thing I love is like all of a sudden everybody was climbing on the bandwagon making these movies that were just god awful and terrible. I remember like there was the guys like you had Allison Anders, you had Kevin Smith, you had
Anders,
Troy
Duffy on Boondock Saints. Yeah, every other person, if they're not taking from Jim Jarmusch, they're taking from Tarantino and Paul W.S. Anderson and Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And you just can read it because it just plays that way. But it's even more confusing because, like you say, you're just like, why not just be you instead of trying to ape?
And it's like all of a sudden every studio had to do like their version of Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
Had to do their version of Clerks. Had to do their version of this.
Yeah, Kevin Smith. That's very true. Yeah, it's like and just foul mouth dialogue, and sometimes it worked, but there were a lot of duds out there. And I actually do like Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. You ever see that one?
No, I haven't.
Okay, McKelty Williamson, Rod Steiger in one of his last roles, Kiefer Sutherland, who also directed. And just another fugitive on the runs movie. I don't think it's perfect, but it does have some solid characterization and action, but that's just it. Like, even if you were decent on your own movie, people would just endlessly compare you to Tarantino. And then it's just funny. They get pissed when they realize Tarantino's like sampling all the stuff he grew up. I'm like, yeah, this is one crazy puzzle I will never understand. As close as I can say, as we probably got into a recent flop, would probably be 2019's Serenity. Nothing to do with the Firefly franchise.
No.
This is I've already had it spoiled for me, and I take it you guys have heard about it too. It's basically everyone thinks it just was marketed as kind of another China Lake kind of movie with some erotic elements, just a twisted noir tribute. Anne Hathaway and McConaughey go on Ellen to promote this movie. But the test screenings were so bad, much like the Ford Fairlane deal. It was only showing at a few screenings, barely making any money. Like, they did not know how to market it, even though some people like the plot twist where it's like all in a writer's head, just a stupid cop out. Yeah. But it was just one of those where you're just like, so is Robert Towne like the only fucker who knows noir? And everyone else just emulates Chinatown for the billionth time?
Yeah.
Because it seems like half the time they will do that. The fancy blonde singer, sleeping with the private eye. And it's just like, well, and I do think that was one of the lesser moments of the 90s is, because like you say, 95 is a big year for every other person ripping off Die Hard with a Vengeance, Usual Suspects, or even Heat.
Yeah.
There was like all these other people ripping off Seven and Silence of the Lambs and then adding Basic Instinct elements. And you're like, stop.
Well,
oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
You think you're remaking Chinatown, but actually you're remaking Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid.
Oh,
yeah.
And that's a funny comedy.
Which in turn is the two Jakes,
right?
But I remember that movie Ray Fiennes and Juliette Lewis made called Strange Days.
Yes, it was one of the other cyberpunk ones that, along with Virtuosity,
I was like, what the hell is going on here? It's like, I was, that's when I started to just go back and be like, I gotta watch some of these old movies from the 70s and shit, just to get my brain in order, because I mean, I remember I watched, this Nosferatu the Vampire with a friend of mine.
There you go.
The German version, mind you, version, right? And we were like, oh wow, now, you had to cleanse the palate. Because I remember like going to my film class and I was watching stuff like Sonatine and Fassbender's, one of the Fassbender movies, and we were watching Breaking the Waves. Remember that movie, Breaking the Waves?
So you're going into all the Dogma 95 stuff before Lars von Trier does his own crazy shit.
Yeah, and because I remember like going, then like a couple years later, I'm going to the movies and watching Bicentennial Man, What Dreams May Come, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not fucking Robin Williams, man.
Yeah.
I want Robin Williams going nuts, going ancient. No, I have to be a serious actor. I just want an Oscar.
That movie. It's not Planet of the Apes 01, but it's one of those. I'm like, I mean, it's got ideas, but it's just too damn depressing for its own good. I did rewatch Strange Days, and I will admit I did not like it when it was on TV, but I think you might like it a little more now, especially if you look at it from like a William Gibson perspective. But it is one of those movies that just the third act kind of goes on a little too long. Just we got to have 40 more minutes of the villains trying to kill the heroes and the heroine, and it's like, okay, I'm literally already exhausted for the last 5 machine gun fights and car chases. I sound wimpy when I say this, but I do have a limit. If it is slowing the movie down, I will notice it. Like I even watch other sequels nowadays that I can only watch a scene at a time. The movie's just so oversaturated. Like Lethal Weapon 4 is okay, but the car chases, take them out, the movie goes so much faster. And you're like, see, I need more of the triads and less of Joe Pesci trying to be a comedian.
Yeah. Well, here's the one that gets me is like, you had Strange Days, you had Hackers.
You had it was Cyberpunk season. Yeah.
Sneakers was a great movie.
Movies. Yeah.
Yep. And all I can remember is like thinking to myself, is Hollywood losing itself? Is Hollywood losing its way? It had to take a lot. It had to take some movies to just bring it back. You got Cameron doing friggin' Titanic. But then I remember like all the movies that were coming out like in 93, 94, and Coneheads comes out.
Speed 2. Chicago.
Coneheads, Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2.
Yeah,
Pat the movie. Which Pat the movie bombed at the box office.
Yes, it did. The Ladies Man and
the Ladies Man bombed.
Boat Trip. Oh my God.
Boat Trip bombed. What was the one? Stuart Smalley Saves His Family.
I think that's what it was. Yeah, Stuart Saves His Family.
Stuart Saves His Family. That bombed.
Blood of Heroes with Rutger Hauer, the writer of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have all these just bizarre movies, and it kind of gets to that point where if you're not taping it off the satellite, then you might as well just see it at the video store or buy it off the $2 rack. Like they were doing that years before, DVD took over. And I don't even know how. I mean, I really wasn't surprised when video stores started fading away, because it just got to that point where it's like they can't even keep up with the content and contracts.
No. I remember going to my buddy going to see Mario Brothers. Right?
Oh, dude.
It came out in the 90s, and he's like, I don't know what the hell I watched. I thought I took LSD when I went to, because it was like, this is fucking ridiculous.
Another crazy movie with Dennis Hopper, and I just wonder how half of these guys even kept working, because like this was when the Razzies started becoming worser.
Oh yeah,
bad sports. Yeah. Like I look at it now, and they're just plain dicks. They used to be so clever. Like worst on-screen couple goes to Seagal and his guitar and Fire Down Below. I'm like, see, that's funny. And then when you bring in all this other stuff, you're like, no, that's just being a bully. That's being a prick.
I'll give you the best case of somebody winning a Razzie and basically just taking the piss, and that was Halle Berry and Catwoman.
Yeah.
When she showed up.
I have never liked anything by that director. He's done everything from like a sci-fi movie with Gerard Depardieu to, I think, reshoots of Alien Resurrection, and something's wrong when you got nothing but crappy rap music playing and just endless shots of asses, and you're like, holy fuck, who signed off on this? If I don't see a movie with actual content, why call it a movie?
Yeah,
I'd rather watch porn. Holy shit. I mean, and Michael Massey is literally playing the exact same role as the Crow. That had to be traumatic. And playing, once again, a guy who kills the hero at the start. What the fuck?
Well, I'll give you a case in point of mass media bringing, trying to make a movie that's going to appeal to people, and then it just falls down flat on its face. Mm-hmm. With Love from Justin to Kelly.
Oh,
who the fuck greenlighted that?
When that unleashed, just seeing the trailer that's when I was really like, I stopped watching certain comedies after a while, because it's like, if it's all only going to be reality TV show stars or Paris Hilton or some other idiot, I want nothing to do with movies for a while. Like
the Hottie and the Naughty, I remember that.
Oh god, yeah, just all this stuff that had somehow, instead of going even direct to video, I'd like played at a festivals for 2 weeks, and it's just like, no. See, and even House of the Dead 2, or just one, unfortunately just one, and then Alone in the Dark. When U-Ball took over and people are saying he's kind of smart, I'm like, he's literally saying what everyone else has said for years. Hollywood is soulless and all that, but that doesn't make up for any of his, masterpieces, so to speak. In the Name of the King, where Jason Statham plays a farmer named Farmer. It's like, what?
Oh god, I remember that movie.
And I knew something was wrong.
Burt Reynolds playing a knight.
Burt Reynolds, Ray Liotta with a squeaky voice, very bad. All these other actresses who probably fired their agents. Matthew Lillard was in it, Leela Sabisky and Claire Forlani, also for Mystery Men. So there you go. And I knew something was up because I was in a tech class. Long story short, my teacher was a piece of work. He wasn't mean or anything. He had he'd have cool motivational speeches, like how to cut out people who've been unreliable in your life and all that. And then he'd follow it up with, and by the way, kids, we're winning the war in Iraq. Bin Laden's already been dead. It's 408. And like, what the fuck are you talking about? I watch CNN every night after school. What the fuck is he talking about? But then I get distracted. People start talking about, hey, what's the newest shows and movies you watch? Oh, I just saw the premiere of so-and-so, Stargate, Prison Break, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, cool, addicting shows and gritty stuff. The Shield, it was really Emmy-worthy last night. And then they go on, what did you see in the theaters? Dungeon Siege. nothing but just crickets, and all the gamers pipe up. Even if you just want to see a Lord of the Rings fest, you're gonna want your money back. Please get your money back. I should have. And so I avoided it for years, and then my uncle was the worst at. He would watch anything, just put Sci-Fi Channel on randomly. I'm like, please change, and then next thing you know, Blood Rain comes on after In the Name of the King. I'm like, what are you doing right now? There is nothing good on Sci-Fi Channel. Can we do sitcoms, please? I don't want to watch 2 more hours of this dog shit. Why are we even watching this? The only thing I can say is Michael Madsen and Billy Zane got cool mullets, but I can't say anything else. It's bad. And it just looks like a student film with, again, just what sounds like nails on a chalkboard music, and then all this other stuff that's supposed to be witty. And, when U-Ball finally just told his fans to fuck off, that's when I was like, see, I told you, this dude's just as bad as a politician. He got by because there were German tax cuts. And, and to compare him to Ed Wood is just insulting. Ed Wood.
Yeah. Ed Wood had a vision.
He was an incompetent visionary, but that was the fun. He came up with idea-based B pictures, and come on, there's several Plan 9 fan groups. What are you talking about? And it just, U-Ball, I can't say he had any vision, just confusion on the mind.
Or water on the brain.
There you go.
Well, I want to go back to something that JJ said earlier and talk about the rise of the independent filmmakers like the Tarantinos and Kevin Smith.
All those guys.
Yeah. The 90s, excuse me, the 90s kind of made it evident that Hollywood wasn't the only way to go.
Yeah, there's the Colors trilogy with Juliette Binoche. Yeah, it was all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it got to a point where people, because they saw Kevin Smith do it, they said, I can do it. And then that created
Japan did it better with their own
bad.
Yeah. Oh, plenty,
exactly.
Yeah. The ripoff movies definitely became more unbearable after a while.
Well, I'll give you a case in point. You had a movie like Dazed and Confused, one of the best movies about the 70s.
Yes.
And Linklater couldn't top it. Linklater did that movie later about the guys who were the... Yeah. And then, you got Reality Bites, which is probably one of the best movies about our generation, Yeah. But, everybody just started to jump on these bandwagons, and they were making these terrible movies. And I was like, oh no, that movie's based on, Dazed and Confused. Like there's a movie with Donald Logue called The Tao of Steve.
Yes.
Have you ever seen that movie, The Tao of Steve?
Tao of Steve?
I've heard of it. I haven't jumped in.
I've heard of Destiny Turns on the Radio, which is
Destiny Turns on the Radio.
Tarantino singing.
The Tao of Steve was a movie with Donald Logue, who you may know from Gotham.
Oh, The Tao of Steve. Yes. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a very unusual indie act.
That movie was hyped up, didn't make anything. No. But it's one of those movies you like watching because it's a simple, small movie. It's not a big fucking movie.
Donald Logue is a way underrated actor. Like, he does not, compared to any other comedic guy who's started taking serious roles, he blends in. And compared to others who you're like it took Jack Black kind of a while to kind of be serious. And then there were other comedians like that. Like, people didn't, sometimes even Whoopi Goldberg and Robin Williams would put their heart into a project and people just couldn't get past them being dramatic or the plot being convoluted. But
but I'll tell you, they're in that 90s period and even in the early 2000s, there were some hidden gems in there. There was a movie that I picked up because a friend recommended, Six String Samurai.
Yes.
That is such an amazing movie.
That is one acid trip, man. To come out a year before Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai, and then I feel. Did you guys ever see Hard Rock Zombies?
No.
So that's I saw it. It used to be on YouTube. I feel like this is the reason Adult Swim exists. I am not kidding, and you'll probably get it when you watch it. Case in point, it is a shit show, so make sure to do a lot of drugs before you watch it. But it's a canon film that even Canon Films doesn't even talk about. It's like a weird, just like Romero if he was on high and having all these people kill each other, as well as a future version of Hitler. It is ape shit. But that's also my reason I defend it. I'm like, see, they killed Hitler. That alone gives it a 5 out of 5 stars. But
yeah, I mean, I just think about it sometimes, these movies Hollywood was like, it got to be like, it was almost like a sausage factory from the
it
90s
really
to
was. If you don't suck the producer off, your movie's not getting made. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it got even just
meanwhile there were movies like
like before we had to call bullshit on Rotten Tomatoes, it just seemed like after a while it's just like you just couldn't trust anybody. Like critics hated Norbit, my pals liked Norbit, and I was just like, I want no part of this either way. I'd rather see Dreamgirls or Eddie Murphy be funny again.
I can remember watching what movie was it where I was like, holy shit, this movie's funny as hell, but my friends were going, oh, why do you like that? Brain Candy.
Yeah.
Brain Candy. I went to go see Brain Candy. Great movie. It's the last time the kids in the hall are together on screen.
And like MST3K, the movie, despite them not getting along with, the studio, still pretty well liked by fans. But yeah, there are times where, it still makes a lot of worst movies of all times because it's a far cry from kids, early days. And yeah, I mean,
and what got me was, you talk about Jack Black. I remember Jack Black being in the Never Ending Story too.
Oh yeah,
and that's a joke unto itself because, they made the Never. I remember Dennis Miller said, he goes, the Never Ending Story opened this week. Hey, why'd you make a sequel? It's called The Never Ending Story.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's funny is that you watch that and you watch him in
Bordello of Blood.
Mr. Show.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was like in the first 2 seasons of Mr. Show. And but to me it's like all of a sudden it was like Hollywood was turning out these movies. They were trying to keep pace with what was coming out, what was
too much on the soundtracks.
and all I remember is like the movies when you watch them, they were just horrible.
Right.
How did this make its money back? You don't know.
Exactly.
You sure? Yeah.
And then you want to watch the music video and you got to watch scenes from that awful movie. And you're like,
yeah.
They were too involved in the marketing and they couldn't bother to get, the cast right, and I'll do one more before we take off. Wing Commander. Rightfully forgotten movie. It has some decent visual effects and action, but Jürgen Prochnow is still in Das Boot mode. That only works to an extent. But yeah, I don't know who cast Freddie Prinze Jr. as a lead. It's just...
Put Starship Troopers and Wing Commander on a double bill.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a cinematic laxative? A celluloid suppository that will clean you out. Watch those 2 movies side by side. And I remember what Starship Troopers was that was the year I remember everybody as Troopers came out in when
97, and people kept talking about the shower co-ed scene, and it's like, but is the movie good? It depends. And I didn't care for it when I first saw it. I've grown to like it since, but it's not for everyone compared to Verhoeven's earlier satire. Because
it's going to be a trivia. What movie was the number 1 movie, but was so bad even people were going, we have to watch it? It's Starship Troopers. And Wing Commander, it was based on a video game.
Yeah. And despite having the game guys involved, they just went a bizarre route, and the acting is insufferable to where you literally have to mute it if you want to get through it and just watch the action. I just couldn't resist. It's just because there are just some actors who just can't carry a movie, and then you see them on TV and you're like, yeah, but you're not much better. You're really bad at having your own sitcom or recurring role. Because
I'll give I'll give you the king of like guys who have made shit movies and are still well known. Marjo Gortner.
Dear.
Because the guy was in Earthquake. He's in a really good movie called When He Coming Back,
Star
Red
Crash.
Rider. Star Crash. You know, he was well known. You know, he did a great documentary about being a evangelical preacher about the truth behind it all, called Marjo. Great movie to watch. You have to watch it. It's a great movie. But when you talk about Star Crash, that's one of those movies. Like I said, you put it on with another movie, like let's say, Battle Beyond the Stars. You're gonna cleanse your palate. You're gonna be like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, what did I sign up for?
There's one movie you guys have to see that I've been trying to look for on DVD called Nocturna, which was Nocturna, which was Dracula's granddaughter.
Damn.
It's with Brother Theodore, John Carradine, and Yvonne DiCarlo.
Oh, wow.
And the girl who plays Nocturna,
granddaughter Dracula. Okay.
Yeah, she speaks New York accent. She goes, like he's going, "What are you going to do?" She says, "I'm going to the city. I'm gonna move there." And I'm like, she's supposed to be like, Romanian. I'm going to the city. And I'm like, oh my.
That would definitely make a great double feature with Jesse James versus what was it, Dracula, and then there was the other one, Frankenstein versus something, all with John Carradine. Is like he was the king.
And old Dracula. Put those two together.
There you go. And
Night Train.
And then the Hillbillies movie he did with Cam Mitchell and company. That would be funny. So this has been a delight, guys. I love the John Carradine. He has made anything just bizarre, just worth suffering through, because he did his damn job. These were all good picks, guys. Just some of these, they really do kind of leap out of you in waves where you're just like, oh, that's fucking right. That was a thing. Why was it a thing? I don't know why it was a thing. Just these trends, they're even more unpredictable now, but even then you're just like, half the movie, if you broke it down, it's like they're going by the Casablanca routine, but if the war propaganda was replaced with, in-movie advertising, just Coca-Cola and NBA especially would just spit out the ass just for, in-movie advertising. It's like, you got to see our products in there. You got to rewrite it to where fortunately, I think they learned from the Coca-Cola kid. It's like, don't do it to where you literally hit it too on the head. Where the whole movie is literally an infomercial with a weird ass plot that doesn't help sell the product.
Yeah, like the scene from first Wayne's World, where they were just doing product one after another, and that to me is probably one of the funniest moments of that movie.
You got to be smarter than the average bear, and that's kind of what that movie did. And having listened to the Hans and Franz audio special by Conan, I definitely wish that one had become a thing too, because they worked in a lot of Wayne's World characters in there to make it more meta. In fact, Roger Ebert was even one of the villains in it. So this has been a delight. I will catch up with you next week.
Yep.
Stay classy out there.
With more stuff.
And make sure if you're watching cheesy movies, it's with someone who can stand them. Hey.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a chapter.